Everyone. I hope you're having a great day so far, and welcome to the second episode of Lost in History. And today we are going to look at a game between the Gunsberg and William Steinitz, and yes, it is a game from the same World Championship which I showed in the first episode. But this time Gunsberg is white, and if you remember the last game, Steinitz played a very great, very nice game, completely outplayed Gunsberg in the opening with that Queen's Gambit and it's Gunsberg as white, so it's a revenge time. So let's see how it goes. The game was played in 1891 in New York, and it's a game number 12. And Gunsberg has white pieces, and it starts with e4. Okay, Stanish played e5, and Gunsberg played knight f3. So no king's gambit this time. Knight c6, bishop c4. So the main line Italian. Bishop c5, and we have everyone's favorite Ivan's gambit with pawn to b4. Now, bishop takes b4 is the only move pretty much which is played here, and the main idea of this entire pawn sacrifice, which looks like it's not getting anything apart from getting two tempos, is that well the main move is bishop e7, but if black plays bishop a5, which was played in the game, generally white bishop finds a very nice square on e3, which which stops the king from castling. And it's well, you gain two tempos on that bishop. Bishop takes the pawn, goes back, and now you have the c3 pawn to play d4, etc. So a very uh, aggressive gambit just to open files and diagonals. Well, we have castle. Now, generally here white plays d4, but castle is fairly obvious also. And should transpose after knight f6. But in our game, queen to f6 is played, and this is a bit dubious. Of course, knight f6 is better move, and after d4, d6, and here I will show you just one more move. If you are a Ivan's Gambit player, you have to remember this move, which is queen to a4 here, and this is a very nice move. Threatening pawn to d5 to win the knight or the bishop, because the knight is the only piece defending the bishop. And black has to play really accurately to defend this position. All in all, an equal position, white has a great compensation for a pawn. Anyways, after castles, queen f6, d4 by white, of course, knight to f knight to h6 by Steinitz. Now, before this, black had tried e takes d4 with basically no result, because here white has pawn to e5, very strong move, and you cannot take the pawn because knight takes, queen takes, and rook e1 wins the queen. And after, let's say, queen g6, you have a lot of moves to play in this position, but one of my favorite is bishop to a3, simply getting the control over this diagonal, and white is pretty much winning in this position. Okay, d4, knight to h6 by black, not touching the pawn on d4. But the problem with this move is that why there is a queen on f6. Apart from that queen, everything else makes sense. And white played bishop to g5, of course, getting the tempo on the queen. And Steinitz played queen to d6, which looks very odd. Why would you play a queen on such an awkward square? But if you play queen to g6, then I will show you one very nice line. White can play pawn to d5, knight to b8, and simply develop with knight to d2. Now, if you take on c3, then well, rook c1 and white has a great initiative. But if you castle, let's say, then there is a winning move in this position for white. Try to pause the video and try to find this very nice tactical shot. Alright. The move is actually bishop to e7, and suddenly it's not the rook. Well, if you move the rook, then after knight h4, believe it or not, your queen is getting trapped. You will see there is basically no squares for the queen on this diagonal. You can go to b6, but then you will fall into the bishop's square, which wants to go back. And then bishop b3, bishop e2, knight c4 will win. Or this one is taken, this one is taken, this one is taken, this one is covered by the bishop, this one is covered by the bishop. So all in all, there is no square for the queen. And if you play queen to g4, then bishop to e2, queen to f4, and finally pawn to g3, and the queen is trapped, as you can see. So queen to g6 is basically losing. That's why queen to d6 by Steinitz. And a very interesting idea, which is actually the best move in the position. In my untrained eyes, I would say my first intuition is to play knight to d2. We don't really care about the c3 pawn, of course, but we do care about the development. So why not just rapidly start developing the pieces? But not Gunsberg. Gunsberg in this position found the absolute best move, which is pawn to d5. To me, it feels like an unnatural move because why would you close down the center and give up all the pressure from the e5 pawn when the opponent king is in the center? But actually, you will soon see that this queen and this bishop actually is lacking a lot of squares. And Gunsberg took advantage of the fact and played a brilliant moves after brilliant move. So knight to d8 played by William Steinitz. Now don't be greedy and take this knight because king on d8 is actually fairly fine. It's not that bad. So after knight d8, queen to a4 by Gunsberg, a very seasoned move for the any advanced gambit player. Now attacking the bishop. So bishop to b6. And again the best move in the position, knight to a3. With the idea of knight to b5. So pawn to c6, defending knight b5. And if you want to master the Ivan's gambit, just try to find the move here. Swipe to move. Try to find the best positional move possible in this position, which Gunsberg played. Okay. The move in question is beautiful retreating move, which is extremely strong. Bishop to e2. And this is what I found fascinating about Gunsberg. He played all these top recommended moves so far, and even Bishop e2 is the best move in the position. Now, when you see Bishop to e2, you of course see the idea that you want to put the knight on c4 to attack the queen and bishop. But just how powerful is this? In 1891, Gunsberg actually found the best continuation and saw that after knight c4, there is actually no square for the bishop or the queen to go. So you don't want the knight c4 to come with an attack on both pieces. So bishop c7, getting one of the pieces out of the way. Knight c4, and well, queen to f8 by William Steinitz. A very sad move, I must say. But had you played queen to g6, then there is a very nice move in this position, which is bishop takes d8. You generally don't want to give up the bishop, but this time you're getting a tempo by removing this bishop. Let's say bishop takes d8, knight takes e5, and white is completely crushing. If you move the queen anywhere apart from the fifth, sixth rank, then knight d6 check will land, and that is pretty much resignable. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But after knight c4, queen to f8 play. And again, it's white to move. Try to pause the video and try to find the best move in this position for white. Okay. I mean, there are a lot of moves possible in this position. To be honest, simply rook f to d1 is still one of the favorite moves of the engine. But also there is one inhuman queen to d1 idea, which just threatens pawn to d6. But that is for engines to play. After queen f8, Gunsberg found more human approach and played pawn to d6. A very beautiful pawn sacrifice, a one which you cannot decline because, well, your pawn on e5 is hanging now, and your bishop is also hanging. So you have to take the pawn. And now, once the bishop is moved from the defense of the b6 square to d6, now knight to b6 is a great move by Gunsberg, attacking the rook, and you cannot take the knight because rook hangs. Not just the rook, actually, the bishop hangs as well. That bishop is trapped, which is funny. So knight to b6 lands on the board, rook to b8. to defend the rook, and queen takes a7. Winning back the pawn, but more than a pawn, you just infiltrating the position. Now the rook is very weak, and you can already see some knight c4 ideas, or maybe this knight to c4 ideas, or many other ideas actually. Just want to remove this bishop. Rook here is also an idea. And amongst all these ideas, well, Steinitz played knight to g4. The idea is to play knight to f6 to cut this bishop from the attack of this diagonal. But actually, Gunsberg took advantage of this move as well. So white to move again. Try to find the best positional move in this position. If you are a positional player, you will love the next idea. Okay. So the Gunsberg here took the advantage of the knight being undefended and played knight to h4 with a double attack. The knight is attacked and the f5 square is attacked. Why I'm saying f5 square is attacked? Well, f5 square is such a nasty square for that knight that once the knight lands on f5, it is basically game over. You cannot defend this position at all. But you have to do something. So Steinitz played knight to e6, a very nice counter attack, but it's not going to help. Bishop takes g4, knight takes g5, and a knife, yes, a knife landed on f5. And this knight is not a knight, it's a knife on f5. And now everything is falling. Knight to e6 back was played by Steinitz. And again, the best move in the position, but not the hard move to find. We want to overload this bishop, so the bishop would not be defending the rook. So rook f to d1, simply attacking the rook. Bishop. Bishop c7 is the only square to keep the control over the b8 rook. And again, a very fancy move by white. This time I'm not going to ask you to find the move, but a very fancy idea. Knight to a8. Attacking the bishop on c7 again. And this time the bishop has no squares to defend the rook on b8. So you are losing a rook. Wherever you move the bishop, let's say d8, then you hang the rook on b8. So Steinitz played rook takes a8 because what else? Queen takes a8. And to defend this bishop on c8, which cannot move by the way, you have to play king to d8. And one last time, white to move. You know you have advantage. You have everything perfectly placed, but you have to finish the game. And this is where you should find the tactics to finish the game. Right here, right now. So white to move. Try to find what Gambit played in this position. Okay. So the move is absolutely stunning. Rook takes d7. Just ripping apart that king's defense. That pawn on d7 was the only defender of the entire position. And now after king takes and rook d1 check, well, it was in this position, yes, it was in this position in move number 24 that the world champion William Steinitz resigned the game at that time. And our sample line can go like, well, let's say you play bishop to d6 because what else, right? You cannot really go here because knight. And if you go back, then you hang the bishop, and that is also going to be checkmate soon. So let's say bishop d6. Then a flex will be not to take the rook, take the bishop, which you can do is winning. You can actually play queen to b8 also, which is cute move. I find it really nice. Just overloading that bishop and actually taking control over that c7 square, so the king cannot run after rook into d6. So yeah, a very nice game. And what amazed me is the accuracy of this game. Actually, I would say it's a 100% accurate game. After this bishop, very nice advanced gambit. It's all Steinitz who played some inaccuracies, and Gunsberg found all the best moves in the position, all the right tactical ideas. Even this d5 followed by queen a4. Well, the queen a4 is the seasoned advanced gambit move, but well, you can say that knight a3, c6, and this move, bishop e2, which is the first move which impressed me a lot, to retreat the bishop. And then after bishop c7, knight c4, queen f8, the second move, which is pawn to d6. It feels like after queen f8, this pawn on d5 is something which is cramping black. But no, Gunsberg actually judged right that the queen on a7 would be much better than the pawn on d5. And after d6, he won the pawn on a7. And suddenly, after knight g4, he found another tactics by taking advantage of his opponent's last move and playing knight to h4, which is already a winning advantage. And after knight e6, after this trade, knife got on f5, and after knight e6, finding this knight to a8, another brilliant idea. And after rook a8, queen a8, king d8, the final finisher, rook takes d7, and rest was history. So a very beautiful game, very high accuracy game by Gunsberg. Just goes on to show that how powerful this World Championship candidate was. All right, that's it for today, guys, and that's it for this video. I hope you really like this game, and I really like this game. You like this video, and I hope you on the next. I will see you on the next one. Bye.